very much. Thank you, ma'am. I really appreciate you reminding me. Mary Rita, welcome. And you and Dan are in two different rooms, like Mary and Neil were this afternoon. So we are going to take a deep dive into Modeh Ani. So we're going to be singing a number of versions musically. Modeh Ani lefanecha, Modeh Ani lefanecha, Modeh Ani, Modeh Ani lefanecha, Modeh Ani lefanecha, Modeh lefanecha, Modeh Ani, Modeh Ani lefanecha. So it's an echo. Modeh Ani, Modeh Ani lefanecha, Modeh Ani lefanecha. Men's modeh, women modah. Modeh Ani, Modeh Ani lefanecha, Modeh Ani lefanecha, Modeh Ani, Modeh Ani lefanecha, Modeh Ani, Modeh Ani lefanecha. שהחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה רבה אמונתך, שהחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה רבה אמונתך. Modeh Ani, Modeh Ani, Modeh Ani. So I want everybody to notice Elizabeth, you singing along with me. Have you ever heard this melody before? No, I didn't think so, because I wrote it. And I've never sung it at Moshe, but I did introduce it. I wrote it in honor of a bar mitzvah who I worked with many, many years ago. And we sang this together for the first time when he became bar mitzvah. And you, Elizabeth, you are modeling how to learn a new song, which is to like sing along as if you knew it all along, as a child would do. Or a child afterwards would say, "Oh, I knew that." So that's the way we learn a new song. So let's do the beginning again. Modeh Ani, Modeh Ani lefanecha, Modeh Ani, Modeh Ani lefanecha. Then the funky part. שהחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה רבה אמונתך, שהחזרת בי נשמתי בחמלה רבה אמונתך. Hi everybody, welcome on a Wednesday night. Thank you for reading your emails. Now, we were starting a little bit earlier this evening at 7 o'clock. We welcome Marc Kronisch, the other one of the Marx brothers. So it's the Marc and Marc show tonight. Hi, Marc, welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Always good to be together. And I'm looking forward to it because we have not exchanged notes. Basically, what we planned is I would do certain things, and then he'll pick it up from the mystical place, and then I'll bring us in for a landing as we approach 8:15. So, how I would like to start off this evening actually is to ask a question of you all. How many of you are familiar with the website Safaria? Mary Rita, Marc Kronisch, Bruce Lunn, Dan shaking his head. Oh, so mostly everybody. Susan, you're not familiar with Safaria? So it's a yes or no answer, Susan. It's not like a shrug. Okay, I'm going to take that as a you've been there.
No, I haven't been there, but I've heard about it.
Okay, so Safaria is a wonderful, did I say wonderful? I'll say it again. It's a wonderful resource, which I'm going to share my screen with you in a moment to show you what it looks like. And then I'm going to show you why I am urging you to take advantage of this amazing library of Jewish texts. As you see on the right-hand side, it says a living library of Torah. And you've got everything you might need in here, including much of it translated and even different translations. If you see on the right here, if I click on this, oh, look at that. It takes you right to this week's Torah portion. Or even simpler, if you go back to this homepage, you see the search engine here? I can put in here Modeh Ani. Oh, look what, actually, I don't want all of that. Modeh Ani, and search for Modeh Ani, and you're going to get different people studying about it. And if you're lucky, you're going to come up upon a Siddur. Ooh, look at that, a Siddur with Modeh Ani in it. Prayers upon awakening. You see, I clicked on that. And here is Modeh Ani right here with an English translation. If you don't like that English translations, there is more to choose from. So this is not a lesson in how to use Safaria, but it's a tremendous tool. For instance, if you wanted to know what each of the words in Modeh Ani meant, besides the words that I have unpacked, translated, whatever word you want to use, in our Siddur. So let me share with you what I had up before. There it is. Okay. I'm going to spotlight that for you. Modeh Ani lefanecha. Melech chai v'kayam. Now, we don't sing Melech, we sing Ruach, and that is a whole different topic, which we'll just skim upon in a moment. Shehechazarta binishmati b'chemla rabba emunatecha. And then you see your transliteration, and I actually lifted that right out of our Siddur, where it says not Melech, but Ruach chai v'kayam. Shehechazarta binishmati b'chemla rabba emunatecha. So somebody tell us why I have a picture or an image of a child with Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad up in the right-hand corner. That's not Modeh Ani. Why did I choose to put that up there?
That's the BedTime Shma, so the child's going to sleep. That's the going to sleep prayer, right?
Right, that's the going to sleep prayer. It's the Shema b'mitah. A mitah is a bed, right? So the bedtime prayer includes the Shema. And as Marc reminded us, or I bet he's going to say something about Adon Olam tonight. I might be mistaken, but I might be right for once. So we have the Shema. We have the bedtime Shema at night. It's kind of like the Jewish version of counting sheep, right? Which you never get to the very last thing in the bedtime Shema, which is Adon Olam, which is the last thing that we do on Shabbat morning. And of course, Marc, are you going to touch on this? Because I'm not going to go there if you're going to do it.
Yes, I am.
Okay, then I'm not. I'm just. This is just like a little sneak preview. All right, that there is a connection between what we do at night and these words which we say when we first wake up in the morning. Let's see how Reb Zalman of blessed memory unpacks it. Thank you, living God, for mercifully granting my soul another day of awareness. Thank you for this sacred trust. This is not, my friends, a translation. This is when you are familiar enough with the Hebrew, this is what one might arrive at, or this is what Reb Zalman arrived at, in the way that he related to this text. In other words, he knew well enough what it meant, translated, but the translation did not do enough for him to immerse himself into something that was meaningful, a way to start his day. So we say these words. Let's go through each word. So that's what I'm doing. That's my strategy here, MK. Which is we're going to go through each of the words in this prayer. And if any of you have any comment or a question, a reflection, please don't hesitate. Raise your hand, and then you'll pop up to the top of my screen because I don't see all of you right now. Okay. So, next page. First three words: Modeh Ani lefanecha. Modeh can be translated in a number of ways. Admit, to thank, which is our common understanding of it. Like for hoda'ah is a prayer of thanks, right? So toda, modeh, moda come from the same root, right? So modeh is the word for thanks. Interestingly, it has something in common with Islam, in the understanding that the word means surrender, right? So there is an attitude of right away, the very first thing that we do when we wake up in the morning is to remind ourselves who we are in relationship with. That is the ground of all being, because we're going to forget right away, and we're going to enter into the world of duality. Of course, everything we see and everything we hear, everything we touch is going to remind us of that. And so being a reminder for us right away to be in relationship with what? With whom? Modeh Ani, thanks am I. I am thankful. I am thankfulness incarnate. With who? Lefanecha. With you, before you. Of course, the you is a capital Y. Before you, speaking of divinity. Before you, before your essential being, right? That you are my everything. That I am contained within you. The truth of Maloch ha'aretz kavodo. That in Isaiah's, the prophet Yeshayahu, in his words, everything is filled with the divine essence, and that's you and I included. Now, Modeh Ani lefanecha. It's supposed to be a lowercase I, right? So because uppercase I, we might think of Anochi, the first word of Aseret HaDibrot, the Ten Commandments, right? Anochi, I am. That is divinity as the I, and our little eyes are subsumed within the big I. When our little eyes get too big, that's when the ego takes over, right? And so right away, we are going not into a submissive stance, but a stance of surrendering to that we're not in control of. Oh gosh, we're not in control of anything. And that there is a greater body called God that we exist in, that we are in relationship with. And that is, to me, the essential Jewish chutzpah, right? That we talk to our God directly. We don't need any intermediary, right? Modeh Ani lefanecha. My essence addresses your essence, my God. Nothing stands between us. There's no pretenses, no preconceptions, no assumptions, not even the garb of our own thoughts or emotions. We begin our communion at our very core. And I use that word purposefully because it is a merger that we're going to forget about as soon as we start getting dressed and everything, right? And get out of bed and start living our lives. And as an aside, perhaps that's what the 100 blessings a day is trying to remind us of our our attachment. The mitzvah. Remember that mitzvah comes from an Aramaic word tzavta, to connect to. So if we're so lucky, we have created little bells that go off. Remember, I taught about Thich Nhat Hanh a couple of weeks ago, and his blessed memory, and his practice of setting bells, and the bells where he would where he would pray, and the bells would remind him of just to stop. Right. So this is that stopping place, that if we have set a bell for ourselves in whatever we do, in the way that we walk, in the water running over our hands, anything during the day can bring us back to this moment of Modeh Ani lefanecha, and this I-thou relationship. All right, now the next word, melech. Melech means king. There's no way around it. This is, oh, actually, I want to stop for a second. Any questions, comments? Elizabeth.
I want two comments. I've not heard that interpretation as surrender before. And in hearing it, I have a whole different relationship to the prayer.
Wow. Could you tell us a little more?
Because it just what you said is that putting I'm surrendering myself right from the get-go. And as you say, I don't remember most of the day, but it just, so I really am grateful for that interpretation. And the other thing is that I was glad to see the modah, because when you sing, and even the rhythm of the melody and of the singing, it's very different, modeh and modah. You can do different things musically with it. So I was aware of that.
Yeah.
And so I'm very grateful to see the inclusion.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And what you said brought up that it is an asana, a posture. In yoga, there are asanas, postures that we use that put us in what? And basically alignment too. And so you're sharing with us what you just said about surrender, and how that really resonates with you. That's how it's resonating back to me. This is yet another one of the many, many postures that we can take throughout the day to realign ourselves. Jay.
I'm just extending on that. It's just, for me, it even goes into acceptance and giving up on resistance as well, which is, it comes really easily to me as putting up, out of fear and out of anxiety, is the resistance of, and just to appreciate and accept and understand about that lack of control. And maybe that lack of certainty and trust that comes with it.
Beautiful. Well, I love the use of the word resistance, because it's perhaps, if we think about ourselves through the day, we might be involved in resisting things almost all the time. God's presence is always there. It's like people who strive to live with messianic consciousness, that we're not waiting for Messiah to come. We're waiting to open our eyes to see that consciousness is always here to take advantage of, and to see with different eyes. So back to the teaching. Where are we? Okay, Melech. Melech, is that popping up as a large screen for you? Or you can always put me into in speaker view yourselves. I'll do it right now, but you always have control, for those of you who are not as familiar with. So I'm not big for you here. Now I should be. Deborah, I'm going to make you co-host. There we go. Because Deborah's one of our loyal Gazumbais. Okay, now I'm bigger. Melech. Melech means king. All of our brachot, our prayers, start with Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam. All right. Adonai is the name, and Melech, what that's called is Shem v'Malchut in rabbinic language. What that means is the name and the job title. What God's name is Adonai Adonai Eloheinu, our God, Melech HaOlam. That's the God. That's the job title that that divinity has for us. Now, what it means is, like I said, King, the one who speaks and the world comes into being. Right? Baruch Shamar v'Haya Olam, the source of all being. There's an interesting little play with the letters in Melech. If you're not comfortable with, and we don't tend to use gendered language at Moshe, but I was tickled when I learned about this years ago. Melech, the mem is moach, our brain. Lamed is for lev, for our hearts. And the kaf is for keved. It's kishkis, or it's right. It's not kidneys. It's what's the heaviest organ in the body? It's the somebody help me here.
The liver?
Thank you. Well, I'm calling it the kishkis, right? So you put together this, and this, right? You've got the entirety of who we are and how we get through our days. So if you think of Melech as encompassing all of those things, the entirety of all that was, is, and will be. It's much easier, I think, though, for us moderns, and certainly us and Moshe, to sing and think of Ruach HaOlam, or Ruach HaChaim, the spirit, right? And the word Ruach also means wind. As an aside, I often at funerals, when we're outside, point, and there's always some kind of wind blowing, and sometimes you're near a tree that you can almost see and feel the spirit of the deceased blowing through that particular spot. So the ruach, the spirit, is the wind that is unseen, but only by the way it works, right? So ruach chaim, the living spirit. Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. Ruach HaOlam, the Spirit of the world. Modeh Ani lefanecha melech chai. Chai. Hey, chai, l'chaim. Everybody knows l'chaim, right? To be alive, source of life, to be real, that which is living. V'kayam. V'kayam is enduring or everlasting, sustaining. So we've Modeh Ani lefanecha, I'm talking to you, Melech Chai V'Kayam. It's continuing the conversation, right? Now you know who you are, but I'm acknowledging who you are because I want you to know that I know that you know that I know, right? And which puts us in deeper relationship with each other. So those are the first 3 words. We have 3 more words to go. Well, no, 3 more words. We have 3 more phrases to go. We have 4 more words to go. Shehechazarta bi. For you have returned within me. Bi means within, inside. Shehechazarta, chazar, lachzor is to return. So when we say you've returned to me, that's a little sneak preview about Marc's going to get to. Return to me from where? Right? And this is going to be connected in a few minutes to Adon Olam. For you have returned to me what? Nishmati. So you see the word nishama, which can mean soul, but nishima means breath. So it might mean my soul or my breath. So for those of you who are less grammatically aware of what's going on here, it ends with T, like or E, nishmati, my. So if you see a word that ends with yud, often it means my something. So nishmati, my soul, my breath. B'chemla, with compassion, graciously. And if we think of chemla, sometimes almost the same way as chen. And chen is an unearned gift. We get it because we're loved. You are loved, loved, loved by unending love. If you believe that, if you sense that to be true, then it could also be true that that this love grants us things that we don't necessarily earn. right? But it's just because our parents love us. Bechemla, and the last two words here, Rabbah emunatecha. Rabbah, meaning great, big deal, right? It's great, it's numerous. What's numerous is your emunah, is your faith in me, in your faith in me. Chai v'kayam, I'm alive. And what, going back a page, what is this aliveness that I am, right? Oh, that was even 2 pages back. I'm skipping, going all the way back to Melech Chai v'kayam. So remember, we sing on Shabbos mornings that I am alive. What is the aliveness I am? Is it not the Holy Blessed One? That can only be written by someone who is in this kind of relationship with divinity. Skipping all the way to the end again, Reb Zalman would say at the end of this, Rabbah munatecha, great is your faith in me to be Zalman, right? You're not going to make me like Rick. You're not going to make me like Dan. You're not going to make me like John. You didn't make me. You made me unique. And so I know you have the faith that I'm going to align myself through every waking hour, through my breath, through my consciousness, through my presence, which is aligned with your presence, to be Moshe Bear, 3.0 or whatever. A couple more things about these words. Rabbah emunatacha, these last 2 words, if you can see at the bottom in the image there, your faithfulness, this actually comes from Lamentations. This comes from the book of Echa, right? This comes from Yirmiyahu. Our understanding, Jeremiah the prophet wrote these words, witnessing the destruction of the Second Temple. God's kindness never ceases. Indeed, God's mercies never fail. Every morning it's renewed, your faithfulness in me. And that's the sum total of Modeh Ani, which is a big thank you note. A big thank you note. First thing we wake up in the morning. The rabbis tell us in the Talmud that sleep is 1/60th of death. So if we understand that we die every night in some manner, we're not guaranteed to wake up in the morning, right? So it's only proper that we take a moment to express gratitude for another moment, another hour, another day. In this moment, woohoo! It beats the alternative. I'm alive. All right. One last thing before I turn it over to sing another melody and turn it over to you, Marc. The wording of Modeh Ani offers another lesson, which is it would be more grammatically correct to say Ani Modeh. I thank you, right? Not Modeh Ani. Yet the words are in the reverse order, which translates literally as thank you, I. The point is that the very first word that should be out of our mouths every morning is the word of gratitude, right? And that word, and that modeh can, as we've already talked about, can mean surrender. It can mean thanks. And both of which brings us into immediate relationship with divinity. Welcome to those of you who have joined us since we began. Roxanne, hiya. And Mitzi Horowitz is with us. Hi, welcome, Mitzi. Steve joined us. And Julie's here too. So let's go back for a second. So I just give you the words in case you don't remember them. Here we go. Modeh Ani lefanecha, ruach chai v'kayam, shehechezarta bi nishmati b'chemla, rava emunatecha. Modeh Ani lefanecha. I'm not going to ask you to shake your hands today. But Mary, read us dancing. Chazar tavi, nishmati אמונתי בחמלה, בחמלה רבה, אמונתך בחמלה רבה, אמונתך בחמלה רבה, אמונתך. Passing the baton to Marc Kronisch.
All right. So, first thing I'd like to say is I didn't want anybody to jump to conclusions when Rabbi Marc just said that sleep is 60% death. I'm actually going to
60%, not 60%, 1/60th.
1/60th, but I'm going to explain a little bit more about what that means, not to worry. So, you were right. We are going to start with a little review for those of you who were last time of Adon Olam, because we decided to start with Adon Olam, because Adon Olam says, "Biyado avki ruchi ishan ve'a'ira." And I'll give you a translation out of our conservative Siddur, Marc, that we both shared while we were growing up. My soul I give unto God's care, asleep, awake, for God is near. Birnbaum Siddur translates, to God I entrust my spirit when I sleep and when I wake. So we said last time, if God is watching over our spirit during the night, where is it going? When we wake up, we're saying, thank you, God, for returning it to me. Where has it gone? So, it's a very good question. And so what I'd like to do is render some Kabbalistic teaching. And this teaching is from Rabbi Isaac Luria, the Ari of blessed memory. And what the Ari says, that according to the Zohar, there's 5 aspects of the soul. And when we sleep, our soul travels to a higher level of awareness. Now notice in Reb Zalman's translation, he says, thank you, living God, for mercifully granting my soul another day of awareness, of consciousness. So when we say the soul is traveling to a higher level of awareness, this is not in the physical sense. And we have to understand what we're saying when we say awareness. The Baal Shem Tov says that awareness, you are where your awareness is. So, some excerpts from some of the traditional nighttime prayer explains this or hints at it in a little bit thorough, these concepts. So, when I call out to the Lord, he answers me from his holy mountain. When I lie down, I sleep, I awake, for the Lord sustains me. Grant, Lord our God, that we lie down in peace and we rise again, O our King, to life. In thy hand are the souls of the living and the dead. Psalm 31 says, into thy hand I entrust my spirit, O Lord. Faithfulness, God, thou savest me. The Zohar says, if a person is perfect in all his deeds, his soul will ascend on high each night. So, we say, Modeh Ani, I give thanks to you, everlasting spirit, when it returns in the morning. There is no guarantee. And as we'll see, not only is sleep sort of a mini death, so in a sense is meditation. So let me describe what I mean by this. The first level, the first aspect of the soul is our nefesh. That's the part of us that's connected to the body, the mind, and it's attached to our animal self. It's the spark, it's the light within, it's how we interact in this finite world. It's the part of our light that is under the skin, in a sense. It's how we see, it's how we touch, it's how we smell. Now, the next level of the soul, as we said before, is ruach, wind, the breath of life. And we can call this our higher self. And when we meditate, one of the things we're trying to do as we meditate is we're trying to connect with our higher self by placing our awareness there, by closing down our mind to thought, slowing down our emotions. It leaves us with a soul connection. We can go to that higher place, that higher self, beyond our nefesh, our animal self. There's higher levels of awareness um, that we can go on, not only when we meditate, but when we say Amidah during the service. We'd want to get to a place where we're connecting on a soul level, an Atzilut. And we've seen before in the prayer service, we start on the Asiya level. That would sort of be the Nefesh level. And then we go to a higher level and open up the emotions. And then we go and we go to the level of the head, of the mind. And then we go to the level of the soul. And that's where we get into the fine line between praying in the Amidah and meditation, raising our awareness. So I really want to talk about the level of awareness that is what we call the Chaya level. And in this level of awareness, we're aware that there is a collective. Some call it a collective consciousness, a collective soul, a, a space, an essence where there are millions of sparks of light that we are just one part of. And so as we go deeper and deeper into meditation, we go from one level to a higher level, and we take our conscious awareness by quieting down all of the other noise, and we take it to a higher level. So in a sense, our soul is traveling out of the body. So one can say that it is almost like a death. So when we sleep, why would this happen? So Kabbalah says that when we go to these higher levels, when we go and we connect on Chaya with all of the other souls, especially when we talk about Knesset Yisrael, the souls of Israel, when we connect on that level, we're there to learn, we're there to connect, and we're there to gain wisdom. And so we're embraced by this consciousness. And during the night, we're gaining some learning there. Dreams are one form of this learning, and there's many different um, paths, including Kabbalah, that does or deals with dream interpretation. Many of the Hasidic rebbes really brought dreams into their teachings. So when we wake in the morning, there's never a guarantee that we are going to come back. So the level higher than the Chaya level is the Yechida level of the soul. And this, we might say, is where we merge with the oneness. We merge with God. This is where us individuals as drops go into the ocean of soul. So we're part of that oneness. We're a integral part of God. When we say God is one, we are one within that oneness. And it's only when we come down to this individual level do we incarnate in the bodies that is connected to the nephesh part of the soul and the mind. So we go up and we merge with God. It is the Kabbalistic belief that's what happens when we die. Our soul leaves the body, and because the body has either withered or had trauma or can no longer function to um, to hold the soul. Many of us that deal with Tikkun Olam, we've heard words like the sparks that were where the vessels exploded at creation and the sparks went all over. Well, we are part of those sparks. And when we've combined those with materialism, the klipot, that's what we have when we're in a body. So when we die, the Kabbalistic belief is we merge within the soul eternally. That's when we connect our eternal soul. And it's also a Kabbalistic belief that at another future time, we can return, incarnate once again to complete our journey of our learning, of our soul's growth, of our journey to be fully realized human beings. Reb Zalman used to say Moshiach is not a personal God. It's it should be called Team Moshiach. We are the Moshiach. When our souls are raised to a significant level, God willing, that will be enough to raise humanity up to a level where the divine energy can truly come down and spread on this earthly plane. So we are an integral part of that process. So now wonder the rabbis put Modeh Ani in there because our soul is traveling through the sleep or through when we meditate, our soul is traveling to those upper levels, and sometimes we're able to merge on that higher level, if even only a moment that we can make that high connection with God. And there's no guarantee that we're going to return that soul. And when our time is over, we would stay there. But in the morning, God willing, we come back. Modeh Ani, thank God I'm alive. Thank God I have breath again. Thank you, God, for my life on this planet and all it has to offer. Thank God for my family, for this earth, for the food we eat. Thank God for my friends. Thank you for returning my soul once again. It's an incredible prayer. Now, originally, and even now, that prayer, many traditional Jews say first thing in the morning, and um, in many communities, it was found that not everybody would get would have that practice, so they brought it into the shul. So my hopes is that when we come to Moshe on Shabbat mornings and we sing Modeh Ani, we can say it from a much deeper level and really, really mean it. Thank you, God, for returning us, for returning me once again to the joy of this world where I can bring down what I've learned through the night in my dreams and from the other teachers in Knesset Yisrael that have taught me during the night. Thank God I can live again and bring that and actualize that learning into my life. So Reb Zalman says that we should daven with joy and with kavanah. And last time, and in some of the meditations, Rabbi Marc has talked about kavanah. I remember you used the word yearning as part of your explanation, a yearning. Some say it's an intention. And yearning for what? Yearning to be in relationship with God. Well, what does that mean? That can mean a lot of things on the head level, on the I just talked about a soul level, a yearning for connection, a connection through my meditations, going to a higher awareness of consciousness, connection during the night when I sleep, connection when I see a beautiful sunset or a baby being born, all godly connections. One of my heroes, Rebbe Nachman of Bratslav, he'd go out into the wilderness and see God everywhere. Ein od milvado. There is nothing but God. And what I'd like to do now is I'd like to tell a little story. I learned this story from Rebbe Shlomo Carlebach, and it's a really good example of what I mean by kavanah and to what level we can get in our prayer. That one of the goals of this prayer class is that uh, we can get to a deeper place. We can see our Siddur, which has brilliantly been. For those of you who haven't seen the new Moshe Siddur, Mazel Tov to the creators, and hopefully it will take us through those levels of the soul to get to that higher place on Shabbat morning. So get comfortable. If you like stories, you might want to close your eyes. I remember Reb Zalman used to say, well, you close your eyes, you provide the video and I'll provide the audio. So this is a wonderful story. I've told this story numerous times. And so the Baal Shem Tov, he tells his Hasidim, I want to take you to a really holy mincha service. And so the Hasidim, they assembled, they got really, really excited. They had to prepare themselves. But the Baal Shem said, I'm not taking you to a shul, I'm taking you to a special place. And they did a meditation for hours before, and they're shuckling. They go to the mikveh, they're all excited to see the holiest mikveh service they've ever seen. So the Baal Shem says, we're not going to the synagogue. Follow me. So he takes him to a marketplace. They walk around the marketplace, and now it's starting to get dark. And all the Jews are clearing out of the marketplace. They're going to shul to daven mincha. He sees one Jew sitting in the corner. He's selling apples. All the other Jews are going, and they're rushing to the shul. He continues to sell apples. He doesn't go to the shul. It's getting darker and darker. Now the Hasidim are getting worried. It's getting late. When are we going to daven mincha? The Baal Shem tells them, be patient, be patient. But nevertheless, the Hasidim are getting fetchy. No, they didn't build a golden calf, but they're getting fetchy. It's absolutely dark. And the apple salesman never daven mincha. Suddenly, between customers, he looks up. He says, Ribbono Shel Olam, Master of the world, I'm so sorry I didn't daven mincha. And the Baal Shem says, Gewalt, did you see that holy mincha service? Gewalt, what a prayer. I can't believe it. I've never seen anything like it. Gewalt, if we could only all daven like that. So I pray that each one of us will wake up tomorrow and will say, Modeh Ani, with that kind of kavanah. And when we go to shul at Moshe, God willing, this Shabbat morning, and when Marc starts singing Modeh Ani, we can really sing from the bottoms of our hearts and from a deeper place than we've ever sang before. Amen.
Amen. Modeh Ani lefanecha.
Modeh Ani lefanecha.
Modeh Ani
Modeh Ani
lefanecha.
lefanecha.
Modeh Ani
Modeh Ani
lefanecha. Modeh Ani lefanecha, Ruach Chai v'kayam. Modeh Ani lefanecha, Ruach Chai v'kayam. Modeh Ani lefanecha, Modeh Ani lefanecha, Modeh Ani lefanecha, Ruach Chai v'kayam. Modeh Ani lefanecha, Ruach Chai v'kayam. Modeh Ani lefanecha, Modeh Ani lefanecha.
Rabbi, before we open up to comments and Q&A, I'd like to just lead a 30-second meditation. If everyone would just close your eyes, just get in touch with your breathing. What I'd like us to do, just for a few seconds, is I'd like each one of us, in our own words, to either silently thank God for your life, really mean it. if your custom is to do hitbodedot, put yourself on mute and thank God with words any way that you want. So let's just take 30 seconds. Thank God for my life right here and now. And take a deep breath of life. And I'll turn it back over to the other Marx brother.
Thank you, Mark. I actually was taking a number of notes as you were teaching to remind myself what I wanted to come back to. But more important is if any of you have any comments or questions. I saw Jay put into the chat an important question. Sometimes I wake with the clarity of some aspect or issue in my life. Is there a connection? Mark, do you want to take that? Would you like me to?
I'm let me trying to get in my chat to reread the question.
He says, sometimes I wake with a clarity. I wake up with a clarity of some aspect or issue in my life.
Oh, absolutely. One of the customs that some Hasidim do is they write down their first thought of the morning, whatever comes into their head, because that is connected to something that my soul learned last night. And so it wouldn't surprise me in the least, to wake up with that kind um, of feeling of a clarity of connection. So remember, I think at some point in our classes here, we should talk more about what we mean by consciousness and awareness. This is not thought. When I say learning, I'm not talking about we're going and we're learning like I'm talking and you're learning. This is something on a deeper level. So we should all have that kind of clarity in the morning. Amen.
So, Jay, there's a clarification that happens while we're sleeping. Where other ways of teaching us, as Mark just touched upon, some people write down all of their dreams. If I wrote down all of my dreams, I wouldn't get anything done in the day because I dream and I remember all of my dreams. And the Talmud says that an unexplored dream is like a letter unopened, right? So yes, and there's clarity in there somewhere, and it's quite possible I'm not going to understand it until a later time, which is why in the Shema it says that. You have to sorry, I had to say the whole thing again. That these teachings should be on your heart, right? Because on your heart, someday you're going to wake up. Oh, it's going to seep into your heart. Oh, that's what it meant, and that's the Kutzker Rebbe's understanding of that.
It's a deeper understanding.
Yeah, exactly.
It's from your heart, from your kishkas. It's not a head
Not a
understanding.
head thing. Absolutely not. I once woke up, Jay, from sleep, and there was. It's happened once. It never happened again. There was a presence in the room at the foot of my bed that said the following words to me: the person that you want to be is waiting for you. I get goosebumps just saying it out loud again, right? And I think that's a truth for all of us. The person who we are waiting to, that we want to be, is waiting for us. That we are being made in the image of God. Another understanding of that. Any other reflections? Any comments? Any questions? You know me. I could fill the last. We got about 10 minutes left. Deborah.
Well, this may sound like a very juvenile question, but with all those souls running around all night, how do we get our own back?
When you say all those souls, are you talking about the different levels of our soul, or the many different?
Everybody, like everyone in our time zone, is sleeping at 3 a.m., for example. So they're all like wherever, and then eventually we wake up and we're still who we are. Except certain people have personality disorders. Maybe they got the wrong soul.
Very interesting. I wouldn't even pretend to know an answer on that level of that. All those souls running around up there. It's one reason we call the divine a mystery. Marc, do you have any?
I'm not going there. No, no. I'm going to quickly ask Haf what he has to say.
Thank you, Mark.
Two things really quickly. One is a comment and one is a question. The comment is that I also, Rabbi Marc, have extremely vivid, multiple dreams every night. I've done this for years. And quite frankly, when I do wake up in the morning, I do consider it kind of a miracle. And so I really want to celebrate that miracle, because given what I've been through the night, I'm not sure I'm going to be waking up in the morning. So it's a miracle that I am, and I'm grateful for it. The question I have is very practical and fundamental. And it is, tell me, if you would, exactly at which point in the morning you do the Modeh Ani Flaneka.
Tradition says you should say it immediately upon awaking.
Does that mean still in bed?
Yes. Yes. As a matter of fact, the Birkot HaShachar, for which you are famous for, Haf, all of those brachot were traditionally said at home. And one day we'll unpack those in the traditional way of where they came from, because one of those had to do, if you say I have everything I need, well, it had to do with that you would say that bracha when you put your shoes on, right? When you girds Israel with strength, when people would put what was called at the time they would, their girdle would wrap something around their midriff. Right. So all these blessings had a very practical act that was attached to it. So the practical act here is that we're waking up and we're saying, and Deborah, I thought of this while Haf was talking, Modeh Ani lefenecha shechazarta bi nishmati, return my soul to me and not somebody else's soul. Right? Because that would be very, very confusing. And now I'm beginning to wonder, I'm going to look into this because I think it's a really provocative question that you're asking. Is it possible? I mean, and I suspect that it's not just possible, that it is a truth that people that do suffer from multiple personality disorder are having something like that go on with them, or from past lives, most is a probability too. But I'm not going to venture any farther than that because I don't want to hurt myself. Bruce.
But before Bruce asks the question, I just want to say to Haf, it's my personal custom. I take my legs and get out of bed, just flip my legs and say Modeh Ani. And so I'm not lying in bed. I'm just sitting up and very thankful.
Yeah. So it's a nice, I thank you, Marc. There's no halacha, there's no laws about when you say this particular mantra, this particular prayer. So I think that's very powerful when you make it your own and that you come up with your own ritual for when you say it, right? Bruce.
I'd like to respond to Deborah's question and wondering if if all these souls at 3 o'clock in the morning on the Eastern time zone are floating around, how does it make it back, our soul make it back to us? And I think it's Isaiah, and it might be chapter 43, where Isaiah writes, speaking for God, I'm guessing, that I have called you by name, you are mine. And so if God has called us by name, it is God's call to return our soul to us, to me, because God has called me by name.
Right. I know who you are. Right. V'karati b'shimcha, I've called you by your name, you are mine. Li ata. Nice. Thank you so much, Bruce. That's very powerful. Mary Rita and then Mitzi.
It it's a thank you to Bruce. That is like one of my favorite passages in the Hebrew Bible, and it really really makes sense. That I really believe that we are loved so much, and we are loved so much and created in our uniqueness that like I love Deborah. I love your question, but I really believe that somehow that my soul has this kind of like invisible kind of, you know, uh, cord that's going to bring it back to me or whatever. I remember when I was at DLTI and we were studying Zohar, and they talked about that our souls went to the Garden of Eden every night when we were asleep, and I thought that was pretty amazing. I love the idea that I'm wandering even maybe further than the Garden of Eden, and just the richness that we bring back to ourselves the next morning. Boy, what a thing to surrender to.
Thank you, Mary Rita. Does everybody remember? They don't have many more. I think we used to drive into banks, the drive-in banks, and you put that thing in the hydraulic thing and it would suck it up. So I think maybe that's what happens, right? Each of us, we are a container, we're a kli, right? We're a vessel, and when God is behind the window, right? And in the morning, our souls get whisked back into the only vessel it could possibly belong to. By the way, Marc, as you were teaching before, you said something about the body, being limited and the soul, being forever. What came to mind was that the body has a limited warranty and souls have lifetimes warranty. Mitzi, Roxanne.
I wasn't sure what the topic was tonight, but it made me think there's a Chabad story. And a young boy was getting cookies from the Rebbe's mother. And the boy said to the Rebbe's mother, "What is the Rebbe's favorite prayer?" And he was expecting, Amidah, and then all these. And the mother said, "Modeh Ani." There's nothing more important than thanking God first thing every morning. So it's a real tradition in Chabad to say, this was the Rebbe's favorite prayer. So
Lovely. Thank you. By the way, that makes two of us. I didn't know what we were teaching this evening either. Roxanne and then and then Steve, and then I'm going to bring it in for a landing.
I'm just wondering, is there anything written about, do we agree to this? Is there on some level, do we agree to go to these other different levels of learning? Do we need an openness, an interest? On some deep level, do we agree to it? And also, is this a universal, the Kabbalists thinking this is a universal experience for all peoples everywhere?
Kabbalah teaches that we have almost a magnetic attraction to return to our source, and so we're almost drawn in that direction. Your soul wants to connect with God when we go to sleep. That's the Kabbalistic teaching. It sounds pretty universal to me, but I can't speak for other paths.
I would also say too, Roxanne, that thank you for that question. That among God wrestlers, among those who yearn to be in deeper connection with divinity, there is a yearning that takes on the aspect of fire, of like a great love, right? Which is called hitlavut, right? To be like a fiery connection, to be so desirous of the returning to the source. And yet we know full well that if we did that, we would be obliterated. We would no longer be alive in this realm, right? So among religious traditions that that point to a a source from which we come from, the understanding, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, the understanding is that that the love is a fiery love is underscores it all, and a desire to give, and gratitude is kind of like the ground on which all of that love and desire and yearning, it kind of it's like a seed bed, when you've been feeding your garden with mulch for a long time, you give a lot of gratitude, you say Modeh Ani every day. This is the ground that you are preparing in order to live the life of that you desire to live, which is in connection with divinity, which most importantly affects the way that we live in this lifetime on this plane, right? And the way that you and I relate to each other. And being in the image of God, we're not living up, especially Judaism, we're not talking about living on some mountain sometime and praying 24/7 for that. All of our religious tradition in Judaism points to reminding us of our eternal connection that Marc was talking about before.
Mhm. Yeah.
Steve, I know you wanted to add something.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to share. This was really good conversation, and the insight it gave me was that that the soul leaves the body and goes up into wherever and mingles, but it gave me insight into my mom and people like her, friends of mine, who have these vivid dreams where they interact and they do things with people that have been dead for decades or years, and it's like real life to them, to where like sometimes I hear my mom get up and she thought she was talking to me, and I was sound asleep down in my room, and she came down to see what was wrong, because it was that vivid. So is that why some people have those vivid dreams? Because their soul goes up and mingles with other souls that are still hanging around out there? Because what troubles me is I seem to go into a black hole. I don't dream. I don't know. I go to sleep and I'm in a black hole. I have no, I'm just gone. I'm out. And I don't know if that's weird, but I don't dream. I don't have any dreams ever. I can't remember ever having dreams.
All I can say, Steve, is I know you well enough to know that you're not going into a black hole. It just might be that you don't remember where you go. But certainly in connecting Adon Olam to Modeh Ani, you are traveling someplace that your consciousness is just not aware of, right?
Yeah, I dream. When I sleep, I sleep. I've slept through 7 earthquakes, and seriously, you can ask my aunt and other relatives I was staying with in California. I slept through 7 different earthquakes that shook up the whole neighborhood, the dogs barking. I was out.
All right, that's a whole different question of why you would wake up during an earthquake. Um, so that's a good thing to know if you ever stay over, then I'm going to need to wake you up.
I will not be able to warn you of anything.
Okay, I appreciate that. So thank you, everyone, for the collective wisdom this evening. Thank you, Marc, for journeying here with us all and for lending your wisdom to this. I want to end with with a teaching from Rabbi Sheffa Gold. So if you want to close your eyes, if you could listen better in that way, it's not a story. I loved what you sharing before about Reb Zalman, Marc, that he would say, "I'll provide the audio, you provide the video." That's great. I'm going to use that all the time. I've never heard Reb Zalman say that. So here's Reb Sheffa's unpacking of Modeh Ani. She teaches that it is, if my very first expression in the morning is gratefulness, rather than seeing what's wrong today or obsessing about how much I have to get done, then I step on to a path of blessing. I prepare myself for wonder. With the first phrase of the prayer, Modeh or Modash, he would say, Ani lefanecha, I open to the miracle embedded in the day that is being given to me. For the second phrase, Ruach Chai v'Kayam, I substitute Ruach for the traditional Melech and acknowledge that although my whole world is in flux, there is a great spirit, eternal, enduring, moving through it all. With the third phrase, Shehechazarta bi nishmati b'chemla, I become receptive to the gift of consciousness from the compassionate one, capitalized, from the compassionate one, and I open to the sense of being seen, known, loved, and fully accepted. I'm going to repeat that. It's beautiful, isn't it? I open to the sense of being seen, being known, being loved, and being fully accepted by the great mystery that embraces me this very day. The last phrase of the prayer, Rabbah Munatecha, taken from Echa, the Book of Lamentations. When I experience God's faith in me, I receive a glimpse of the widest, longest perspective. In that glimpse, I am calmed. I relax my frantic grip. I stop trying to figure it out. I begin to trust the flow of inexorable change. The fact that this final phrase comes from the saddest text in our tradition bears a profound teaching. It seems to be saying that our gratefulness and faith don't come from denying our suffering, but rather by moving through that suffering and getting to the other side. Meister Eckhart said that if the only prayer you ever said is thank you, that would be enough. Gratefulness connects us up to the great flow of receptivity and generosity. When we begin the day in gratefulness, we step on to the path of love. Modeh Ani lefanecha. Thank you, Roxanne, Elizabeth, Rick, Deborah, and Jay, Mary, Rita, Dan, Susan, John, Mitzi, and Hav, Marlena, Steve, Bruce, Julie B, and Judy. Modeh Ani.
What he said.
Lefanecha. Modeh Ani lefanecha. Ruach Chai v'Kayam. Modeh Ani lefanecha. Ruach Chai. Oh, I left John out. Modeh Ani lefanecha. Modeh Ani lefanecha. Thank you all so much. Never too early to say good Shabbos, good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Hopefully see you all on Shabbos morning. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark and Mark.
Yeah,
Thank you
That
thank
was
very
you.
much.
wonderful.
That was
anyone
great.
has
Thank
any-
you.
Night at the Minyan.
Night at the Minion.
Well, we had